3, 2, 1.
Hi, this is Genesis, and you're watching Dante's Boxing Nation.
Dante's Boxing Nation, what's going on, guys? So I made a video a while ago, I don't know, 6 months ago, whenever it was when Andrade pulled out of the first fight with Zack Parker. I made a video and I titled that video, Demetrius Andrade is running out of time. Demetrius is 34 years old. He was just in position to become Canelo Alvarez's mandatory at 168, fighting Zack Parker for an interim title. But Andrade, he just turned the fight down. Now, Andrade was only going to make about $184,000 for the fight, which is probably most likely why he pulled out of the fight. But the problem is, Andrade was going to make over $1 million when they first presented this fight to him, and he pulled out of that fight. And that's the reason why they only bid it like $300,000 on the fight. So basically, Demetrius Andrade, he really screwed up when he pulled out of this fight the first time. The big question is, where does he go now? Who is he going to fight now? Because this fight would have put Demetrius Andrade in the best position. The only other fight that makes sense outside of him, becoming the WBO mandatory, the only other fight that makes sense at 168 is against David Benavidez. That would be the only thing that would make sense, is if, Andrade and David Benavidez, they're negotiating right now behind closed doors, which is possible, but it's hard for me to believe that's the case, especially when it comes to Andrade's first fight at 168. Unless he's working out some type of 2-fight or 3-fight deal with PBC, because Andrade is a free agent right now. So he can go over to PBC and make a David Benavidez fight if that's what he really wants to do. But if that's not what Andrade is planning on doing, then man, he is really screwing up his career. He is really, really screwing up his career. I mean, he done already messed up his bag, and now he's messing up his career completely. Because if they won't even pay Andrade to fight Zack Parker, then that means if Andrade is not taking on a big name next, he ain't gonna get no kind of money. They just offered him $184,000 to fight Zack Parker. I mean, listen, at age 34, the move to 168, it made all the sense in the world, because once again, Canelo Alvarez and David Benavidez are there. Those are the only two opponents that could truly catapult Demetrius Andrade's career, propel him into pound-for-pound status, and truly secure his future financially. So I don't know what he's planning. I really can't wait to see who Andrade decides to fight and when he's going to come back, because I remember he did an interview where he sat down, and he did a live, and he had his friend asking him questions, and I couldn't get a good read on where he was coming from, because 1 minute he'll call out some fighters, he's calling out Canelo, he's calling out Eubank, but then he starts talking about how boxing is not, my whole life. A lot of people don't know this, but I got a lot of other stuff going on outside of boxing. And when I hear a fighter say something like that, especially when they're constantly pulling out of fights and making horrible business moves, at least when it comes to boxing, it just makes you wonder, what exactly is Andrade thinking right now? Is he focused the way he used to be focused? We'll find out, because once again, man, Andrade, he's wasting a lot of time. He's getting a lot older, and it's either now or never. Okay, now let me talk to the Mexican fans that I see sometimes celebrating in my comment section, saying that Demetrius Andrade is ducking this guy with laughing emojis, etc., etc. It's funny, because when they see news like this, they look at it as a victory. It's a celebration for them when they see Andrade turning down fights, no matter who it's against. And the reason why they're so happy, because they feel that this is pressure off of Canelo. It's somewhat of a deflection to get people off of talking about a possible fight with Andrade and Canelo. They're looking at all this news like, man, this means Canelo Alvarez is really not going to have to fight him now. When in reality, if you truly felt that Canelo Alvarez was better than Andrade, better than Charlo, or any of these guys, this news should upset you. That's how real boxing fans react when someone pulls out of a fight. It's just like the Ryan Garcia versus Gervonta Tank Davis fight that's in negotiations right now. For years, everyone had been talking about the Fantastic Four that included Ryan Garcia and Gervonta Tank Davis. Now the fight is in negotiations. Right now, I can guarantee you, Mexican fans deep down, they're praying that that fight doesn't happen. Only real boxing fans are really looking forward to that fight happening. But they don't want to see it because deep down, they feel Ryan Garcia is going to become another Gervonta Tank Davis victim. So they never wanted to see Canelo versus Charlo. They never wanted to see Canelo versus Andrade. They don't want to see Gervonta versus Ryan Garcia because they are used to seeing Mexican fighters lose to undefeated black boxers historically. And I got to reiterate, that's why once again, them hearing that Andrade is pulling out of this Zack Parker fight to become the WBO mandatory for Canelo Alvarez is the best news they've ever heard. For us, the best news is when a fight is announced. For them, the best news is when someone is pulling out of the fight. And that's why they're always using laughing emojis when they're talking about news like this in my comment section. Now, let me close out with saying this. When you guys are trying to compare Demetrius Andrade's situation to Canelo Alvarez's situation, to all the Mexican fans right now, let me ask you this question. If I were to ask you, who is the best fighter out of Charlo, Andrade, and Canelo? We already know you guys are going to definitely say it's Canelo, right? So the difference from what Andrade is doing and what Canelo Alvarez is doing, according to your logic, Andrade, he's going after the best fighter. Canelo, on the other hand, is often avoiding the most dangerous fighter to fight the weakest link. With the exception of him fighting Bivol, and that was because he had no choice. Because Canelo, for the first time in 4 years, he only had 2 options on the table. And both options were tough fights. Either fight Bivol or fight Jamal Charlo. Those were his only options. He didn't have an option to fight either Bivol, Charlo, or Makabu and John Ryder. Because we know if those were the options, we know who he would have chose. So Andrade, he's been trying to fight Golovkin, Canelo Alvarez, who you consider pound for pound one of the best fighters in the world. That's not what Canelo Alvarez does. And I also want to say this. Another difference between Andrade's situation and Canelo's situation is, see, nobody is calling Andrade pound for pound one of the best fighters in the world, including myself. So Andrade, when he doesn't do what he's supposed to do, he gets the backlash that he's supposed to get. He has everything to lose in this situation. See, Canelo was different because when Canelo was avoiding all of the best competition, old media was still protecting him. They were calling him the best fighter in the world for doing it. This is my point. If Canelo was getting the treatment that Demetrius Andrade gets when he's not fighting anyone, meaning they don't have Canelo close to the pound for pound list, then the boxing world wouldn't be talking that much about Canelo Alvarez. And this is why I always tell you, old media puts a curse on these fighters on the hope list. Canelo Alvarez, Inoue, or whoever. Because they get these overrated fighters and they put them all the way on the top of the sport. And every single time they put these fighters on the top of the sport, those fighters become the first fighters to lose out of the bunch because they never belonged in that position in the first place. If they would have treated Canelo Alvarez like the fighter he truly is, then he never would have been in every single fighter's crosshairs. Old media made Canelo Alvarez a bigger target. Now, sure, he would have still had the reputation of ducking the best competition, but he would be flying under the radar. Like Jaime Munguia or Virgil Ortiz, for example. No one's talking a whole lot about Jaime Munguia, the fact that he was Charlo and Andrade's mandatory, because no one is praising him as pound for pound one of the best fighters in the world. No one is comparing Jaime Munguia to Floyd Mayweather or Sugar Ray Leonard or Robinson, right? The reason why Canelo gets blasted because old media have been misleading the public for years, telling us that Canelo is pound for pound the best fighter in the world over fighters like Terrence Crawford, Errol Spence. And it turned out to be a big lie. Canelo had more of an incentive to avoid the best competition because he knew old media, they were trying to protect him. In fact, old media was encouraging Canelo Alvarez to avoid the tough competition. But old media is not encouraging Demetrius Andrade to avoid the best competition. It's going to be the complete contrary. Andrade is not going to get awarded for fighting against weak opposition. So if he doesn't do what he's supposed to do in his career, he just will never be considered pound for pound one of the best fighters in the world. And he'll retire as an underachiever. So the question is, why would Canelo Alvarez fans be comparing Canelo to a fighter like Andrade who's not on the pound for pound list in terms of who they're fighting? They don't even realize what they're really saying is Canelo Alvarez, just like Demetrius Andrade, was never considered pound for pound one of the best fighters in the world. That's why they're comparing him to someone who's not on the list. I mean, you're supposed to be comparing Canelo to other people on the pound for pound list if you truly felt that he was one of the best in the world. You should be comparing him to Terrence Crawford, to Errol Spence, not someone who's not even on the list. But once again, it's a deflection tactic. You notice they celebrate that Andrade is not fighting Zack Parker, but yet they still are not saying, man, I really want to see Canelo versus Andrade. I'm so sick of people saying that Canelo is scared of him. I just want to see Canelo destroy him to shut everyone up. You never hear them say that. They're happy with the fact that it most likely won't happen. Now, I'm going to go ahead and cut this video short and wrap this one up. And I say cut it short because I actually have more to say about this, but I might have to make a second Andrade video. But yeah, we'll get back to this discussion. That's all I got for now, guys. I'm on to the next one.
All right, now check this out, guys. If you're looking to repair eczema scars, burns and bruises, dark spots and blemishes,
Fever blisters, diabetic ulcers.
this right here is the perfect product for you guys. It's called Andrade Face and Body Oil. Athletes and top-ranking boxers, they're also using it after training to reduce swelling, inflammation, and to ease the pain. So get yours today. Go to Andrade.com.
Like them on Facebook and follow them on Instagram.
Fellas, I've got some great news for you. If you've lost your hair or have a receding hairline, the time has come when you can finally get your hairline back through a process called scalp micropigmentation. So here's how it works. It's a hair tattoo that replicates the look of your hair follicles when you have fully shaved it down. So to get this hookup, make sure you follow and contact my man Scalp Carolinas on Instagram.
Let me tell you guys about Issa Israel Law Firm. It is a full-service legal practice based in Denver, Colorado, an emerging hub for combat sports and high-altitude training. If you're a fighter inside or outside of the ring and you need a law firm you can trust to fight for you, visit thefighterfirm.com or email help@iilawfirm.com. Legal representation is usually limited to plaintiffs or defendants in Colorado, but iFirm can help anyone in the world with trademarking their business name, logos, and U.S. immigration issues. This brother has been my attorney for a while and helped guide me through all kinds of business and civil issues, so make sure you guys go to thefighterfirm.com.